Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. And like always, if you've been a listener for a while, you'll recognize Mandy. She's back on again. It's been 3 months since we last had her on. Normally, I wait much longer than that, but she's just so great at conversation that I thought, hey, let's have her on again. And a little backstory for everyone that doesn't know it. She was 5'2", 150 pounds of lean muscle at one point, and then she won her pro card in 2019 in the women's heavyweight bodybuilding division. She hasn't really competed since, and yeah, she's into a lot more than bodybuilding now, which is what I really respect and appreciate about her, is that she just brings so much more to the table than just her past experiences in bodybuilding. And she has so many great things to talk about that, yeah, it's a delight anytime she comes on. So Mandy, thank you so much for coming back on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, to start things off, we got to talk about water fasting because I have heard some people do it. I have never talked to someone who has done it. And how many times have you water fasted?
I think maybe 3. I think it was 3 5-day water fasts incomplete. Yeah. I think I've done it 3 times.
5 days. How do you go 5 days without water?
Well, you know that it's first thing is understanding that it is possible and you're not going to die. A lot of misconceptions, there are false programs that we don't even know it's possible. Once you understand and break what's possible, then you're like, okay, you can do it. And mostly it becomes the mind game, right? So then you have to get clear over the mental aspect. I didn't have a lot of body fat the first few times I did it, so that was a little more concern. And my menstrual cycle started it caused my menstrual cycle to start at the end of the first time I did it. So actually, I think I kind of stopped at 4.5 days on that one, just because it's okay, I was kind of worried in terms of that. But yeah, people have gone, once you actually start doing the research and understand what the body is capable, it's a big misconception. It is the human condition to believe in scarcity, to believe in lack. And because we are so conditioned to be fearful of lack, we overconsume. And we think that we need all of these things when really we don't need all of the things that we think we do. We think that we're survival is based on not having certain things when really this is a program meant to create overconsumption, which then creates and enslaves us in other forms. So, and then we have, that gets us in North America, most of us are overeating and eating the wrong things and have way too much. And so you have people that have just eating way too much stuff, overloading their bodies and their systems that it can't even run. And then they're scared of not eating for 3 hours or 4 hours. It's dude, you could not eat probably for 1 month straight and you would be fine.
I don't recommend it, but you probably could. Yeah.
Yeah, no. People have survived. Depending how much body fat and stuff that you have, right? There's a lot of things that are dependent, but
if you're 1 week out from a show, I wouldn't say a month would probably suffice.
No, you wouldn't want to do that, right? But I'm just saying, if you get trapped and people have, faced extreme conditions of trauma and circumstances, in which case there is no choice but to be in that circumstance, and they have survived. What did I read? Even people, I think I listened to something that, and I haven't done the research myself but they were a good source, but saying that there is an example of someone that was in an extreme circumstance that actually even went 3 days without water. What the human will is capable of is phenomenal, beyond. So in retrospect, not that I would never recommend going 3 days without water, but people do a 24-hour dry fast, which is the equivalent to a 5-day water fast. which I have not done yet, which I may do at one point, because then I'm like, I want to see, okay, what's this going to be like? um, but the fears that we have, and that comes to us, not even humans, not even realizing the strength and the power that we have within our bodies, that the body is capable of, and that how much we fear death, and how much we fear scarcity, and how much we fear, even getting to know our bodies. There's such a lack of understanding within that we don't even really know what it's capable of, or what people have been capable of, but mostly like a lot of the human condition is ignoring the body, and actually, like, of course, not giving it, like, choosing to put it under these crazy conditions is a term of kind of objectification too, in a way as well, because it's like, okay, let's see, how I can get in an alter state by, basically using the body as well, but it's in respect to a certain intention or spiritual ascension, or like for a particular ritual, which makes it like, okay, is this going to bring me into deeper knowledge of myself in some sort of way, or connect me through to something beyond.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that you were mentioning too, especially when you were competing, is that you were creating a strong physique, which was kind of used as your armor. When did you learn to not have that mindset and realize that, because I remember there have been times where you also talk about, like how you have to learn to be in your body as opposed to just making your body just what you want it to be and just making it for others. So when did you sort of develop this mindset change? Because I think it's important that a lot of people at least consider something like this.
Yeah. How do I want to go into this? Like, it's a consistent, constant journey, right? Like, of unraveling as well, and I'm still learning a lot. And for me, like, too, it's a lot. Like, originally, it's a journey for everybody, and depending where anyone is on their journey, like mine comes from like starting into going to the extremes and then having to learn how to scale it back. Whereas like other people may take it from like, doing nothing with the body and like having to go into it from a different angle. And no angle is right or wrong or more better than the other, right? But ultimately, what everyone's goal should be is to actually learn how to honor your body and how to truly connect with it. I like how I got into why it became so important for me, bodybuilding and working out. It definitely was a coping mechanism to a lot of trauma that I had faced, as well as my mom had mental health issues, in which case, I had read that exercise is one of the greatest things that you can do for your mental health. So that became very important. However, here's the thing, and in which case too, like, two things can be on different ends of the spectrum and different ends of the pole, and their energies can actually be the same thing. So me being quite extreme is actually the opposite end of the polarity of someone choosing to be obese and not exercising whatsoever, right? Like, they're both coming from a place of not enoughness, right? And that there's something missing in there, right? And so there's hurt and pain in there. And so what does actually true love for self and the body entail? And then a lot of people talk about like, oh, going to the gym and being like this and like over sexualizing and over objectification. That really is still like looking for your worth and acceptance and manipulation and objectification of the body, whereas the other one is like total. So one is like totally like going into the extreme, and then the other of like being unhealthy and is like the same energy, but totally throwing out like anything to do with it, the looks. And then if you look at the energies and like what's actually truly going on in the inner world and the shadow dynamics, a lot of them can be exactly the same, right? Like it's just this sadness or this trauma, or there's something that like there's a lack within there that is either trying to search. One is putting food and unhealthy things in to feed their emptiness, and the other is trying to feed their emptiness by over exerting themselves and over controlling themselves, where it's like, okay, well, what is life and what is love? And then these are the deep questions that you get into asking. So for me, like I was in a lot of times you're unaware of these conscious things that you're like, of these things that you're doing at the time. And you will tell yourself that they are for the good, they're for the better, or that like nothing's wrong with you, or like you've got everything all figured out. And that like, this is like, oh, all those other people are, wasting their life. You got to be doing this. And then you'll have different stories in which judgments come across. And what it really comes down to is like, how fulfilled are you and how good do you feel in your body in every single moment? And how are your relationships in life? And to make relationships, and then there's a balance with that relationship thing too. It's like, so like for me, like going to the gym, like it was a way of like coping with life, and that it was a very solitary way to live life, and that was safe for me. And I was getting my social interactions through social media, and getting my validation through, and of like that I didn't really truly have in my life through, fans. And like, it's like, okay, this is going to make me feel important and find love. And then the realization was that, no, this isn't doing that for me. Okay, so like I can foresee myself, like I can continue on this road, I can win the Olympia, I can do whatever, but like, how fulfilled am I going to be in life? And like, then that would be, I'm like, okay, every single day I'm going to have to be doing this, and this is cool. And I love that I got to experience this and I got the wisdom from it, and I can foresee myself going and continuing on. But then I'm like, we only have so much life to live in this earthly body that we choose. And I'm like, what else do I want to experience in this life? Like this, like, yeah, I could go on and foresee myself doing that. But then like, there's so much other things that I want to experience in life. And so, and I really want love. And then I realized like, my personal relationships were like super toxic. And, I had a lot of trauma that I hadn't dealt with. And so when I was like, I had to take a moment and step back and realize like, oh, fuck, I hadn't dealt with a lot of stuff. And then I was using this as a way to cope, really. And then I started on my spiritual journey. Like, I was like, okay, if I'm attracting these kinds of toxic relationships in my life, that means there's something within me, that allows this, and I need to start getting to know myself. I need to start getting real, and like, I'm not feeling fulfilled enough, feeling happy, and this is feeling so empty, and I'm not in alignment with this fetish modeling stuff that's going on. And I, like, as much as I'm trying to like make them not feel judged for liking me, and because it's feeding my ego, right, at the same time, because I don't feel loved and I want to be loved and accepted for exactly who I am. So therefore I want to treat them and not make them feel loved and not make them feel bad. But meanwhile, it's like I'm not in complete alignment with what I'm doing, and I'm not feeling loved, and it's actually holding big blockages up for me to experience a life that I truly do want to experience when I sit back and be like, okay, what is it that I want to feel? What is it that I want to love, that I want in this life? And like, and it's been a huge like ego unwinding, because it's like, I truly do. I love working out, and I love the feeling of training and working out, and I love being athletic. So like that really is me in my true self. That's not a false self. But like this over sexualization was something that I learned through observation, but also was something like that. It was a repetition compulsion from my trauma as well being played out, but was also like something like kind of like paying attention to the matrix world of society. And I'm like, okay, if I want to do well in this industry, this is what these people are doing. And so this is what I got to do. And I'm like, okay, so like I can build this fake image. And like, I'm just like, I don't care. I feel good in who I am. I don't care what people think about me and whatever. They can think what they want. And I would like notice and observe. There's like, I could observe that what's inside of them was projected onto me. And they would think that I'm whatever their projection is, but which was really their shadows. And I would just like, I just found it very interesting. So I was like sitting back and just noticing and just observing. I was collecting data, spiritually collecting data, and being like, okay, what's all this about? Why do people have this kind of fetish? What's going on here? Like, this was me in my like internal world. And I'm like, Then I'm like, why would my spirit put myself in this situation? What's going on here? So like, I'm just constantly asking myself questions and going on this journey and seeing where it takes me and seeing like, okay, what does this mean when this happens? Why are they so violent? Why is this happening? What happened to them? And so my questions are like, they must have some kind of trauma. Like, I'm curious. And I'm like, okay, let me just observe this and play this out. And then, but when it really came down to it, when you go into a real spiritual journey, what's on the inside is what is attracted. So like, I'm like, there must be something within me that, is having this mirror reflection. So like, I must have, because I experienced violence, like in my childhood, like a lot, like huge violence. And so like, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then like, why are these people like having to act out this violence? And so like, I'd be like, okay, this is cool. So to me, I was like, not cool, but but I mean, I'm like,
she's on a roll, everyone. She might slip up once or twice.
But in terms of like, I'm always like, I take everything like back, like, oh, okay, cool. Like as the observer, I'm like, all right. So a lot of times people have to have a safe space to play out their things. And I'm like, okay, they're playing out their dark shadow aspects. But like, then I'm like, but I'm not in a life. Like, I don't want this. Right. Like, so like the part that had me accept what I'm experiencing, the story it's telling and like taking in the spiritual data, then had to come to the point where it's like, wait a second, there's like, well, what do you want? What do you need? What is true for you? All these people are, how sexually projecting their stuff onto you and like blah, 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 and making these ideas. And then it came down to like me having a romantic partnership and how is that going to be played out. And then I realized I was attracting people who weren't okay with like me and my past, and like actively playing that out in my reality, which basically was a mirror of me. And it was so hard to look at, because like when you're faced with that, you think like this is happening to you. But when you're on a spiritual journey and then you like actually awaken, you realize this is a mirror of how I feel about myself and how I feel about the things that I went through and that I haven't dealt with. And so what am I going to do with this? So then it's like, then, I was just reading lots of like just very intrigued by psychology, spirituality, and just like self-teaching myself. And then I did, of course, also like ayahuasca ceremonies. And what I noticed, because it's so funny, you can go through trauma, and this is what I learned too. Like I went for leading up. Uh, you can think you're the magical one that it didn't affect you but what happens is you disconnected and you cut yourself off from all of it in order as a protective mechanism. And you cut yourself so off from it that you don't have the feelings towards it. Like you've compartmentalized it. And so you've not felt into your body and you haven't allowed your body to feel. And so like through bodybuilding and everything, like I was in so much pain all the time. And then I think, in my head was like, you're taught no pain, no gain. And like, this is for a reason and like build it. And then because you know what? Physical pain is easier than your emotional pain and like the other pain that you had to deal with. So like, and two, through trauma, like you don't even have the awareness that you've cut yourself off. So sometimes you have to put yourself through a certain kind of pain in order for you to feel things in life. And there were moments where I was like, fuck, I don't feel anything. I don't feel any feelings. And I'm just going through the motions and I'm just going to do this. And I don't know what love feels like. And then those are the moments where like, you need to do something different.
Well, I will say, just even the last time I had you on, I've had numerous guests of mine say that they want to also get out of the objectification cycle because they do realize that it's a cycle and you're just seeking validation from other people, but you're not really seeking your own self-worth and you're not really developing yourself as a person. So what advice do you have for people and a lot of times they do feel that they're just stuck in that loop and they can't really get out of it because it's part of their job and it's how they make money. And do you have any advice for people who are looking just to try to get out of it? Because for so many people, especially with so many tasks in life, you don't really view it in steps and increments. You view it as like one big huge leap, and people don't realize that it's a process. Like you talked about, it's not something that just happens overnight. It's something that you have to develop. But is there any advice you have for someone just to get started in just realizing their own self-worth and breaking through that objectification cycle?
First of all, the suffering that you experience has to be greater than the fear that you have about change. And that's the only time you're going to actually elicit change. That is the human condition. When it's like, I can't take this any further. And I'm actually more fearful of staying here than I am fearful of change because everybody is fearful of change. And in order to do that, you have to actually believe in something bigger than yourself. So that's where faith comes in and spirituality in some shape or form. And it's about like whether you believe in that or not. Psychology can kind of quite be similar. And when you start like learning about it, just got to get curious. The thing is you don't know how good you can feel. And you don't know how shitty you actually feel until you actually feel good. And my biggest awakening was like when I did my first ayahuasca ceremony. And like, so like I was like reading things and understanding things and awakening to things on an intellectual level. But your nervous system, so like you got to get into healing your nervous system. That's first and foremost. Because the nervous system is what keeps you in this fight flight, response. And that's where, even if a lot of people haven't experienced, like, you don't have to experience like crazy trauma. And like the world itself has ingrained and created a scenario for us continuously to be in this, like in our nervous system overload. So you're so accustomed to it. So, and two, like, even from things as a child, when you have to think from the mentality that you were as a child, or a baby, not think with the adult mind that you have and reason. What could you have taken on as that tiny little child or baby that happened without the adult reasoning? What story would you have possibly taken in? And then that is stored within your body, and that's a program stored within you. And that's your hard drive that creates you, that you have no idea, that's running you unconsciously as you're older. And you're like, I don't know, I never had any trauma in my life. But meanwhile, society taught the moms to cry, let their babies cry it out. What did that little baby think when that baby was left alone and wasn't getting the attention that it needed? That was trauma. So a lot of us have trauma from that. And is it something to like be hateful or mad or at your mom for whatever? That was what was taught, right? Like they thought that was doing a good thing. But you have to honor that part of you. Like if that's coming out in your like an anxious attachment style in your relationships going forward, or some other attachment style, which is cool. I think everybody should look into attachment styles for relationships. It'll give you a lot of understanding about your personal relationships and how you operate in life. But the first step, so my nervous system, like I did an ayahuasca ceremony. So like what sometimes plant medicines or like psychedelics can do, and whether people take that path or not, this was the path that I love, that helped me, and that progressed me and was able to, I did an ayahuasca ceremony. And during my first ayahuasca ceremony, like it was a weekend, so 2 ceremonies back to back. And then when it was over, I got to feel the contrast of my body not in fight or flight. And I got to feel it. So like I only knew it as this thing before. Like I had nothing to compare it to. So because I have nothing to compare it to, I had no idea that like there was anything wrong. Also, like I craved stimulants because to get me going. So guess what? That's because it's familiar. That fight or flight is familiar, and you need that familiar intensity in order to motivate you because you're used to that. That's what you're familiar with. You're doing repetition compulsion for your nervous system, because for it to think that it has to go through life like that. So like ADHD or people who are like addicted to like stimulant drugs or like coffee is because, and like that panic in you, because that is a program that was ingrained in you. And then your body, that keeps your body in high cortisol. Like you're only supposed to have that when you're in immediate danger, like you're an animal and you're in immediate danger, and like you're supposed to like save yourself. So for the amount of like 30 seconds to 60 seconds or whatever, like you're only supposed to experience that, and then your body is supposed to calm down and and get back to normal functioning. But today's society has us always in this. And then we got high blood pressure, we got diabetes, we have all these things because the cortisol and the panic mode is constant. So nervous system regulation, getting yourself out of the sympathetic into the parasympathetic nervous system. And you can just do that like with breath work and learning how to connect your breath. And so deep breathing rather than shallow breathing. And so like that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. And I made fun of. Like I said, I've been toxic. I've had lots of ego defense mechanisms. Like I made fun of lots of things that I now were.
Oh, years ago, if I heard water fasting, I would have laughed at it. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah. So like before I would be like, what the hell? Oh my God, that's so weird. Like and then breathing, before I thought like, oh my God, you gotta, like, I know I literally said this, learn to breathe. Who needs to learn to breathe? Like, that's so dumb. We all know how to breathe. You came into this world breathing. Like, yeah, but you learn to shut it off when something happened to you. You learn to protect yourself by breathing up here to protect yourself. And then all of a sudden you got stuck here. because you didn't want to feel the feelings because we're scared of feeling feelings. And we're taught that it's inappropriate to act a certain way and to feel certain things. I'm a very sentient being. Like I cry easily. I laugh easily. Like I'm like, I'm mad. I'm like, and I'm a free flowing, person. I'm a Cancer sun.
So am I.
Aries moon. Yeah, your sun.
July 15th. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. So like we feel a lot of emotions. And so we're meant to feel. We're meant to allow it to flow through us. And then when we're taught, hey, you're not supposed to act this way or feel this way or certain, or like you're in the like where you are at the workplace is inappropriate. Don't cry. Anytime you choke down your truth and your emotions, you're causing repressed energy. Energy then has to be, it's stuck there. Then when the energy is stuck there, it causes tension. And then it's not flowing. And then it continues to be stuck. And then it starts like creating, that's when disease and pain, like it gets even more painful. And we're not taught as a society to communicate with our body. We're taught to numb it. We're taught to take an Advil. Oh, take this. Oh, don't question. Why would you have a headache? Why would you have this? No, take this, take this, take this. Just numb it. Don't go to the root problem when really it's like your body is like, yo, listen to me. I'm talking to you. And you're saying, I don't know why my shoulder hurts. I'm just going to keep on doing this because my ego, like, I can't stop at the gym. I can't, and then, oh my God, it just snapped off. Now I can't train for like 9 months, but like you didn't listen to the first little thing that came up. And that's the problem. Or like, I have high blood pressure, but I've been getting, I've been waking up with puffy eyes and I haven't been drinking water and I've been having headaches. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, I have this disease. Well, you didn't listen to all the little communication tools that were given to you by your body. When something is uncomfortable, when there's tension there, what it is, it's like, think of it as the small inner child. Cause we're like, a lot of us didn't know how to didn't have great parenting. Not that the parents did their best and maybe they were good parents, but a lot of us not taught like how to actually co-regulate emotions and how to honor the kids when they're feeling a certain way, or how to teach and guide the kid through certain feelings, because we were put in a society where the parents are broken down. We have broken homes, and then there's like no time and availability and no presence, and we have to work 2 to 3 jobs. And so like there's no, and the stress, they're just trying to survive. And then there's no time and attention that's actually given to being present, to actually coach and guide the child realistically. And so parents don't even understand. I want to touch on like a true present parent is going to know when any little thing is wrong with their child. That they're like, so many families, and I'm going to speak this because this is in my experience, and I know a lot of people that have had childhood sexual trauma. How like a true present parent would know exactly. So the answer to anything is total present, and not that to come down on that parent is just that the tools were not there, and then the society was built in a way to distract. But then it has to come. It still is everybody's personal prerogative and responsibility to be like, oh, okay, what tools are available? How can I be a better person? How can I learn? How can I learn about myself? How can I learn about other people? How can I bring more awareness, more presence, and more love, rather than, oh, well, I didn't get this, so I'm not going to go and do that. Like, where is that going to get society? Nowhere. Where's that going to get you? You're going to continue in the same resentful, ugly path. But a lot of people want that, because if you don't want that, you're going to do something different.
I mean, yeah, when it really comes down to it, you said it perfectly, where you just need to be able to want to change more than you fear of losing what you have. And that's something that I've dealt with many times in my life, whether it came to, you know, what I ended up doing in college for my major, or when I ended up moving out, and just stuff like that. Yeah, you have to fear, you know, what's going to happen if you don't do it more than you actually fear the situation that you're currently in. So I totally agree with it. You've said this before in the last time that we had you on, and I didn't elaborate on it more, but you said muscle intrigues me. So what exactly about muscle intrigues you? And how does that still go today, even after competing? Because to me, I'm more intrigued by like what you're able to do with it, like how you're able to like just like push incredible weights and the function with it. But what exactly about muscle intrigues you?
I love the look of it. Like, I love it like an art form. But I'm not weirdly sexually attracted to my own muscle or anyone else's muscle.
Believe me, I know some people who are, and that's not an ideal thing to be. People, and nothing against people that are, but I'm just saying, like, if everyone was, it would be kind of weird.
Because it's like looking at, like, to me, but like I look at all kinds of different bodies and physiques, and I find them artistic and amazing. And I love all sorts of different kinds of physiques. But like it's been a journey to me too, like of what I didn't like leading up. Like when I was younger, like it started, I had anorexia, bulimia. I wanted to be skin and bones. I didn't want any fat. So like, there was healing that had to happen within my own mechanism. But then like I love how muscle looks. I love the form that it takes. But I love it. I love it now in a more wholesome like way, in terms of how it feels. Like I love what it does and how it pushes. I don't love it in an objectifying way. Like like that I see like it's never. And I used to.
You're not the person who's like posing in the mirror and falling in love with yourself, basically.
Yeah, like I would pose in the mirror and like I'm like yeah, I love that, but it's like I'm not like.
You're not the people that I know of that are like obsessed with that though, where that's like their entire identity. They need to have like again, I'm not ripping on anyone that does have this, but I'm saying like ideally you wouldn't want to. Just like how there are some situations in life that aren't ideal, that doesn't mean that they aren't good for the person doing it, but like for an ideal person, it wouldn't be something.
Yeah, it's like I'm loving the whole being of it, like the whole like person, the feeling, the like, the like it's about like loving you, loving your vehicle, like enjoying. It's like enjoying a piece of art, but also knowing the energy behind it and the artist, right? And the soul, right? So like that's how I love it. And coming to terms with, to me, like stepping into having, now I'm like, okay, having more body fat, because like like, to me, I didn't want to have, like, other people could have body fat and I would love and think they're amazing, but for me to have it, that was really difficult for me.
By the way, that's every bodybuilder that I've ever talked to.
Yeah, so but now it's like I'm like, okay, I'm looking at okay, so like also this comes to societal and what we see. I don't know if you're seeing in your reality, but in my reality of like how, we all are living our own kind of universes, right? And then like what we're looking at and the, excuse me, subject matter that we're liking and scrolling on is coming in. So I don't know what's coming up in your reality, if it's the same as mine, but like there's mass, like about male and female. and masculine and feminine, and like even like the dating.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you right now. Now that football season is starting this week, that's my entire feed right now. But up until then, it was some of the similar stuff they're talking about. I'm just gonna say, like, for the next month or so, like, I'm not gonna see anything other than football stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about sports actually. But so like so and in society too, like in the dating world, and like what's happening in society right now is, so there's so much deep trauma about men versus women, and actual identities of like sexual orientation and stuff like that. And all like this comes from like being in the collective consciousness, like when you go into
Oh, we've been having a show behind you the entire time, by the way, with your cats and dogs. So no worries about it. I've been enjoying it. That's why sometimes I've been looking off to the side. I was like, what are they doing now?
like, what's happening? For the first moment, I was like, oh, there's other people here. Doggies, cats. But anyways, so like Carl Jung's, he deals with like the collective consciousness, and so like too, like with further my study, especially with COVID, and you think of like this health crisis that we had, and us being so disconnected from our bodies, and then we had like this huge pandemic which like created us to be even more fearful of our bodies and be like, oh my god, I have to be like, I can't trust my body, and then like there's more, it creates more disconnection. So when there's even more disconnection in the body, what does that happen? That happens people living up here and into more of spiritual realm of the collective consciousness, which then it's like, oh my god, who am I? And identities are getting amalgamated, and there are traumas that everybody is going through, and collectively us collectively too, in terms of trauma within the feminine and trauma within the masculine, and like through that, then you have like the feminists and misogynists, and like all of these things are being played out. So it's about like what I really truly feel like humanity needs to do, and what I've been doing for my own self, because like we each need to do individually is our own healing. And it's like, how do I heal the masculine aspects within me, and how do I heal the feminine aspects within me? And like when I look and speak to myself of my own personal journey, like I wanted to be feminine, like that's something, but I didn't feel connected to the feminine, because like I also had these like distorted views of the feminine aspect, in which case, so how I saw, like it seemed like, it was better to be a man in this world. So like that is showing up in my physical reality through my acting out of my physicality, right? So like, then I'm like, okay, so like the feminine kind of manipulates the man through her body, which is like sort of like, that's an acting out that I did. And then also like, it's like, okay, it's not safe to be a female, and I don't want to be a slave, and I don't want to like being like, a housewife that is amounted to nothing. And these are like, and I'm saying these were past distorted thoughts. Like now I actually have, like with healing, like I see the value in like the wholesomeness of like
the Leave It to Beaver play, basically.
Yeah, like there's wholesomeness in that, and there's lots of beautiful aspects of that I truly want to incorporate. And I think like it's about harmonizing different aspects and knowing that, whatever it is that you truly want to experience. But a lot of times we are living in a false self, which is like actually trauma induced in like past stories of like what we saw when we're growing up. So like I saw like my childhood wasn't great, and I saw like domestic violence. And so like it would make sense like that I would, create this strong, powerful physique, as a protective mechanism. Meanwhile, like, so like the projection too is like that I'm strong and can kick, like you wouldn't want to mess with me. And then like, maybe I'm like very dominant, and that like aggressive. like if you saw me and you didn't speak to me and didn't know me, like through whatever image, and then that's a lot of the projections that I got.
I'm not gonna lie, 5 to 150 pounds of muscle. If I saw that in the gym, I'd be like, oh dear God, like, like I better not piss her off.
Right. But like, that's the cover, right? Like that's the cover, but you don't know the actual true story within, and like, who am I, and what is my actual personality meanwhile. And like, this is true to, like, you see a lot of people who are like, you know, covered in like tattoos and like over their face, or like lots of like, or like any type of, or a big burly men. All of these are just images, right? And then it's you on the outside creating the story of what that image means, but you have no idea what that person is. You've only created a whole story, a projection according to you of what you think that image means, which is not even true. So like me, and that's where I had to sit back and be like, okay, I had to be real. At first I was just so like, I don't give a shit what for false stories people think. Like, they can think whatever I want. And like, that's a great, that comes into a great play. Like, oh yeah, you're so good in yourself. But also that was also like a protective mechanism too. Cause like when I really got down to it, I was like, I'm not really showing my true self. Right. Because that's not truly who I am. Like what I'm portraying to the world isn't like, and I was mad too about that, because I'm like, screw these people. Like they're the ones creating these false stories. It's not my problem. But then also I was like, I'm not attracting what I want in this world because of this kind of image too. And so like, that was something that I've been really like toying with and playing with. Is like, I like being muscular and big and strong, but at the same time, the image and the type of attention that it's attracting is like not coinciding with like my true self on the inside. And there's an incongruency here. And like, how am I going to deal with this? How do I feel about this? And how am I going to take this going forward? And so then it's like, well, who the hell really am I? And what was I really doing anything for? So then it's like, okay, let's like dive deep. And then, am I changing something because of other people, or am I going to change it because of me? And so like, then that's more layers that you have to get into. And it's like, okay, then you have to discover, who am I? What makes me feel truly good in my body, absent of, protective mechanisms, absent of anything else? And how do I discover and uncover who I truly am, and then stand in that, and then be like, whoever likes me or doesn't like me, then that's attracting and creating the right people in my life. But in order for me to get there, I first need to be like, who am I? Because really, the bodybuilding and the huge muscle, like all that muscle was like really, it was me striving for like to find love and acceptance and validation, and to be seen, and to like have some sort of importance. And it came from, and that was never going to give you the fulfillment that you think that it's like when, like, Jim Carrey or whatever, or any other stars, I can't remember who said, I hope that you get everything that you truly want. I hope that, like, there's a statement like, everything that you want in your life, meaning like material or fame. I hope that you get your fame so that you can understand that that isn't what you truly want. And so like, it's the lack that strives for that. Now you can, if you have complete fulfillment internally, and then that just seems to be the side effect of the experience. But most people are striving for that from a place of like, love, or like lack of love, or like in some shape, form, or another. To be extreme really is to, like, you can't really be, it's like a survival mechanism. When it's your survival mechanism, like, I'm going to be loved and accepted for this, you can move freaking mountains because you're got a fear a fear of not surviving. So then you do that thing that you think is going to get your acceptance, get your love. So like you move the mountains, you do all the things, and then you realize, oh shit, the emptiness is still there. That didn't do it, because it has to come from within. And then you can do the exact, then once you figure out the within, and you can do the exact same thing. And so and then you discover it's not the thing, but it's the inner work that makes all the difference. And you can't judge anybody else for whatever they're doing, because you don't see their inner world. You can't see their whys, you can't see their journey unless you actually truly get to know them. So like most of your stories and preconceptions are really a reflection of your inner world onto them. So when you think like, oh, they're doing this or they're doing that, you need to get curious. What are you observing into other people? Whatever you are seeing, it's like the yellow car theory, right? Like when you know about yellow cars, all of a sudden you see yellow cars everywhere. So whatever your thoughts and belief systems and your barriers and your limitations and your like judgments, whatever they are on the inside, you're going to see them everywhere. And you're going to think it's all those people, when really it's you. You're seeing it because it's within you. And then they're being the mirrors to say, yo, this is inside you. And then the mind fuck is to say, that's them, not me. And then that's the spiritual journey, to be like, oh, I see this. Let me sit with this.
When you were, bodybuilding and you were like intimidating to people, how long did that last before you didn't really enjoy that as much? Because I can imagine at first, it must be really, it must be a thrill to know that like you intimidate people just by your size and just how, powerful you look. But was there like ever a certain moment where you realized that like, hey, this is not exactly what I'm looking for now anymore?
I always hated the idea of intimidating people. It always blew my mind because I never saw myself for how people saw me. So like, I knew myself as me, like it's like vulnerable, like.
Which, by the way, the moment you open your mouth, you're not intimidating anymore. Like the moment people know you for 5 seconds, they're like, okay, Asha, not intimidating at all. No offense. I know you don't want to be intimidating, so I'm just gonna tell you mission accomplished 5 seconds in. So I'm like, it's just like me though. I'm 6'3" and like 210 pounds. So if you see me walking down the street at night, the moment I open my mouth, everyone's like, oh, okay, this is just
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so when I hear that I'm intimidating, it would always be like, I would always be like, what? Like it was very difficult for me to comprehend, because I'm looking from, this version. I'm not looking this way, I'm looking that way. And so I'm not like understanding why I would come off as being intimidating. And so like I've been told that several times, like even from partners, not just because of how I look, but because of the accomplishments that it takes as well, that it's, I guess, it's intimidating. And so I'm like, I don't understand this. So basically, I don't know. Like, I know that it's, we all have a journey that we're supposed to experience in this life. And then like, when I look back and I see all the connections, like I'm leading up to, I'm like, oh, okay. It's kind of like what's fate and what's like free will, right? Like, I'm like, okay, like, I see all the interconnections and the interwovenness of like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I like was led, like all of these dots, like, oh, that was a sign that I was going to eventually end up and lead here. And I was meant to be here in this life and to have this experience, and like to go through bodybuilding and like experience this type of power dynamics. And then when I get in learning astrology and you see all the interconnections and you're like, oh, it's like, okay, how much free will do we actually have here? Well, your free will is actually how you choose to receive your experience. You're destined to have certain things. You're fated to have things happen to you, but your free will is the amount of suffering you decide to take in according to your surroundings and what's happening to you. So you can choose to observe and enjoy and love and have, acceptance for the things that are going on within you, or you can choose to resist them. And when you choose to resist them, that's where the like it feels challenging. And that's when you feel suffering because you are resisting life and you're trying to control it when really it's like, okay, what can you control? You can control the way that you receive and respond. That's what you can control. When you're trying to control other people and out like certain circumstances, then life is going to continuously try to get you to understand that, your suffering is because you're trying to control things. Huge play out in my life and experience. And it's a trauma response that anyone who experiences trauma is going to try to feel safe. And safety means like, I'm going to try and control all the aspects and understand it as much as possible. So, like, astrology taught me a lot in terms of that. And I have a lot of Pluto in my chart. So, but I think it's just been a journey of me observing, being like, okay, is this working for me? How do I feel about this? A lot of it was like my typical nature of like wanting to rebel society, wanting to rebel, like be like, I want to show that you can be like, as much as like I took a lot of shadow and challenging aspects, there were also like positive aspects that were playing out that were equal in that I wanted to show that you can be feminine and muscular. And I think I continued to nail that. I didn't overdo it with my like peds. I was smart with that. And like I always kind of kept that aspect towards myself. The challenges for me were always coming to my most personal relationships and how I understand my worth through them and how they are responding. But what I came to learn is that I'm experiencing those things because of my internal world. And so then that was like, then I'm like, okay, then I need to start to get to know myself so that I can change that outside experience. And so that's where, again, like you can't control the outside, but you can control what's going on with you by getting to know you, but you can't do it in a place of, I want to control it. You have to come at it in a place of love and compassion. One of my, like, in my ayahuasca ceremonies, is I have an Aries moon too, like, so like that makes me a warrior, and I'm like, okay. And especially like, what is it? I can take it on. Like, give it to me.
Hence the bodybuilding, everyone.
Yeah, like it's like, okay, this is like, I have that kind of personality. So like I'm like, okay, what's this? What are you gonna show me? Like, show me my trauma. Show me like just whatever it is. Just give it to me. And then the realization came. It's like, that's your problem. That's your problem right there. How do you think a little child is going to feel and respond to someone who talks to themselves like that, talks to them like that? I was like, fuck. Okay. And it's a really hard thing too, like when you haven't been taught how to, like, anyone shown you how to give you time and attention and compassion and like to actually truly parent in that way where your needs are mattered, and that like to love you through that. And then you have to teach yourself how to do that and reparent yourself. So it's like, oh, okay. And then just as you start unraveling those aspects of yourself, you just naturally, like, you just sit with yourself and be like, what's in alignment with me? Like, perhaps, and that's why there has to be like no judgment. Like for maybe some female bodybuilders, like that are like soaring and like if they're completely fulfilled, like maybe and that do fighting and stuff, like that is in their alignment of what is true for them and their soul. But that's not in alignment with me. So it's like, that's not my true self. That's not who I am. That was a mask and that was a protective mechanism. And so the image and everything that I presented to the world, it wasn't me.
I mean, the way that you're able to articulate and describe things is incredible. Like, honestly, go on speaking tours, do something like that. Do something, because you have it. But I do got to ask before we wrap things up, what is the mind to muscle connection like in Pilates? Because I can imagine it's enough in bodybuilding, but in Pilates, my mind is going crazy just even thinking about how crazy that is.
Oh my God, I recommend Pilates to each and like everybody. Like, okay, like, so too, there's some guys that come into the, like, I do a hot yoga facility, and then they offer Pilates there, and it's intense. And so, like, the thing of like being connected truly to your body, it brings you out of your head. So like, that's also too, when I'm working out, and that's what makes the difference too, when you're doing a workout and you look at people who are going to the gym, and you're like, think like, oh my gosh, why are these people going to the gym so often, and they're spending so much time there, and they're like, their results aren't really like adding up to like what they're experiencing. It has to do with presence, and it has to do with like being completely there within your body and what you truly believe. So like, you have to truly be with your body and in that connection. So like, when you're there, be present, be with whatever it is that you're doing. In bodybuilding or powerlifting, right? Like, it's like, it's like, you're kind of like coming from a different outer source of like just powering it, and like, you're not actually like, you're going quick, so it's like a quick thing. You're not really like having to truly connect long term. With Pilates, it's like this slow connection of where you're like feeling where you're not feeling, which is something to notice too. It's like, oh, this isn't turning on, like I'm having a really hard time to turn this on. So there is a disconnect here. And then like, when you're feeling like, when you're doing that slow movement and like, you're actually feeling. And so like, when I read one of my The Voice of the Body, that's a great book to read. I'm reading about like how we're so disembodied, like cut off because of like whatever trauma. And then when they do he does bioenergetics to like kind of create the flow of energy within your body again, and to open it up, like you're going to vibrate. And so like, when you do like high intensity work of like actually connecting to that body part that you actually haven't connected to, like, you're like, a lot of times like, you're vibrating and you're thinking like, oh my God, what the hell's happening? And you think something's wrong, but like, with the awareness of realizing, oh my God, I just turned on energetic flow within that body part, and that's why it's vibrating. And like, I've actually just like engaged my mind to muscle connection with that, and allowed an open channel, and I've woken it up. And this is trapped emotion that never got to flow. And now all of a sudden, because like, so when an animal gets like in hunted, right, like a deer or whatever, and it isn't actually caught and it experiences trauma. So after the whatever was preying on it takes off, the lion or whatever, and the deer is then safe, it lies on the ground and it convulses. And they do this as an automatic thing to clear the trauma out of the body. But when humans experience something, they don't do anything about it. They don't let it move through. They just go on with their life, and that trapped energy is just stuck there. So then if you do something like slow and connecting, like either yoga through somatic works, bioenergetics, or like doing Pilates of like, where you're like totally engaging slowly, and slowly using your body weight and like feeling that muscle connection through that slow time under tension. And then all of a sudden, like you're pushing it and then you're like vibrating, you're actually opening, like you're connecting the channels and allowing that to flow. And it takes time, especially like, so like I have a lot of muscle imbalances from all the power work and all the hard years of training that I'm like, holy shit, can't believe like I feel weak doing this body weight. And I'm looking around and all these women who are like, you know, they're not looking like me, like an athlete training that's been bodybuilding, and they're doing the same work that I'm doing. And I'm like, this is so hard, you know. But like, here's the thing too, the amount of work and muscle fibers that you're actually connecting through your mind to muscle connection is even different in everybody, and as you progress, so that you are actually mentally increasing the intensity as you do it through that muscle connection, if that makes sense. Like the longer that you're doing it, you're actually able to incorporate more of your muscle more so, and then therefore that's automatically, it's like increasing the weight, but you're just using your body weight through your mind.
What's the biggest muscle imbalance that you have?
Like I've had, like, it's very fine-tuned muscle. So like in my ribs, like the diaphragm, like my side body, and which is so interesting too, because like when I'm reading like the books, the psychiatry books, when they talk about like a lot of women with like sexual trauma will cut off their lower body to their upper body and like have more, like you'll see a lot of people that have cut off their lower body and may have more enhanced upper bodies, usually due to some sort of sexual trauma, because you've actually like consciously cut that part off. So like I feel like my upper body is like more overly developed, and I like had to work even harder on my lower body and like try and engage and wake up, like say my glutes. And then I have like my left side of my left glute, like there's always been a pain, and my side body has always been kind of like there's been pain, and I can't remember the muscle. My mind's gone blank for the word now, but
oblique?
No. In the back. Oh, I can't think of what it's called. Of course. But anyways, and through but like just having the left side and the right side being equal, being able, it's more like tension within my body. Like, so if your body is tense, and then, because I think they're all strong, but they're just like, a lot of them there's some places that are so contorted. And I would say these are like very small areas that to me, I notice them and feel big. Like my yoga instructors that are there, they're like, oh, you're so strong. And like, I'm like, but like, they're not feeling into the tension that I'm feeling in my side bodies when I'm doing this. And like, when I'm breathing through it. So too, with the breathing in the intercostals, in my intercostal sections, like I always felt like this, like in between my ribs, the intercostals tension, like it always felt sore. Like if I press on them, I'm like, oh, like why are they always so like tense and sore in there? Now they're good. But as I'm reading connecting to the body and the bioenergetics that from the shallow breathing that like we cut off from our diaphragms because of like a protective mechanism. And so like that makes sense that I would have done that in connection with like all the extreme training that I've done. So like being able to take all of these things and layer it together and be like, wow, with all of the understandings of all the things layered and figuring out like, oh my gosh, what I'm doing and what people think are just simple movements of doing yoga, it's like I'm there and I'm present and I'm understanding all the dynamics and all the benefits. And because of that, I think I'm like able to get so much more from it, and the healing and the somatics, because there are times when I'm doing yoga too, because you hold emotions in your body. And I'm in a hot class that's like, thank God, I guess it's good that it's hot. But like there are times when you can hit places in your body and then all of a sudden emotions will come up. And so like I'll be like wanting to cry, but like I'm sweating, so it's okay. I can hide it. But yeah, but those, you need that to happen and you want that to happen. And if you don't know anything about somatic work or bioenergetics or trauma or whatever, and then you're going through, you go do a yoga class and say like you have no idea, and then like all of a sudden you're like, why am I crying? What's going on? Or why am I angry? Why is this happening? And then that may actually put a plateau and you'd be like, I'm not doing that again. That's weird.
No, it's definitely, the experiences that we have in life. And I mean, Mandy, I can't thank you enough for coming back on and talking with us. It's always a delight to talk to you. And, everyone go and check her out on her Instagram page. And, just going and listening to all of the topics that she discusses some really interesting stuff that I really think a lot more people should be knowledgeable of, because it does explain a lot of things to a lot of even stuff that I've dealt with personally. So I encourage everyone to go and look into that. But again, Mandy, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.